like gun though. You know how old we are.
Wendy, if you want to.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming out to our special event. I'm sure you have a nice itinerary to go over because it's been a while since we've had one. Just help yourself to the coffee and the sweets over there. If you don't get any now, you can take some to go. My staff is, my name is Wendy Castillo. I'm the manager here at Seacoast. There's Amy's my assistant. I have Nina over here. She's a client advisor. And then I have Kay over here. He's our new employee. Just started yesterday. So. Welcome to the family.
Nice to meet you guys.
I'm from New Jersey, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Tom,
Yeah.
you want to go ahead?
I do. Well, first, I want to thank you
thank
guys
you.
for hosting us, for sure.
Thank you.
It's been about 6 months, actually, since our last one. We had the last one at the police department, and we kind of showcased a lot of the remodel. Since then, we've been really focusing on the internal quality, right? So the external painting the building and remodeling, and doing the same thing with the shelter, buying equipment, buying new vehicles, really fixing the infrastructure of the police department was the first focus. Meanwhile, we were writing new policies and creating new training curriculums and sending folks to school, things like, trying that internal quality as we prepare for accreditation. And we're going to kind of talk about that in a little bit. But thank you guys very much to Seacoast for hosting us, and thank you for the chamber.
Certainly.
They actually coordinate this entire thing, so I appreciate you guys coming out. I will tell you that my last agency, when we did this, there would be probably 200 people that would show up every month, and we did it on a monthly basis. But the reality was they had problems in their community, and those folks came out to express, their dissatisfaction with an issue in their community. The fact that we only have a few folks that come out, I honestly find that as a compliment. I'm flattered at the fact that I think the majority of this community really doesn't have problems. And of course that's indicative of our crime rate being very low as well. All right, well let's talk about that. One of the philosophies of the police department, you can see a lot of our employees here, they're not mandated to come, but they come anyway. And our philosophy is that when a police officer shows up at your house to take care of your problem, when you're in a personal crisis, that should not be the first time that you meet the officer. You should already know his or her name, right? They should be part of the community, showing up to events like this and getting to know you. So again, I appreciate you guys being here, and I appreciate the staff that come in their own time. So we talk about low crime rate. How many of you guys in here know that we have a 911 dispatch center? Most of you? We do. We have 24-hour-a-day 911 dispatcher. We're one of 3 in the county. Ourselves, the sheriff's office, and Seminole Tribe have their own. With that said, how many of you guys think we're 4.5 square miles? How many of you think we get a 911 call every single day? A few of you guys. How many of you think we get 10 a day? All right, not that many. It would shock you if we get between 800 and 900 a month. So we're a fairly busy 911 center, considering we only have 1 dispatcher on duty. So when you think about that on a 30-day recurring basis, how many of you guys think we get more than 10,000 calls for service a year?
A year?
A year, in a year. You think we're going more than 10,000? More than 15,000? More than 20? Last year we went on 26,000 calls for service. And we have 2 police officers typically on duty. So when you think about the volume, we're certainly keeping up. I think it's a very common perception that a place like Fort Myers or New York City or Los Angeles is more, quote unquote, more dangerous. I hear that a lot. Thank God you guys are enclosed in because it's a nice, relaxing atmosphere. When the reality is, if we were as busy as New York or Los Angeles or Fort Myers, we would just simply have more people. Our folks are going to just as many calls for service as the average officer in Fort Myers. If it was more so, we would hire more officers. If it was less, well, we probably wouldn't have as many. But when you really look at the per capita volume, your folks out here are just as busy as any other city. All right, with that said, let's talk about attrition. One of the things that we struggle with here, I think, not just at the police department, but maybe everywhere, we have a new employee, right here at the bank, but attrition is a problem, I think, all over the place. In 2021, when I first got here, our attrition was 68% at the police department. 68% of our folks left. That's a lot. When you figure the officer that shows up for your house, at your house to take care of your problem, you'd like to know them on a first name basis. That becomes very difficult when the turnover is so large. You have new people coming in constantly. The reality is this year our attrition rate is at 15%. Still too high, but we're making great strides in making sure that we're creating a quality work environment to keep folks here. So we're not training them and sending them to another department and essentially wasting your tax dollars. So just know that's another one of our focuses, to make sure that we're there. Mayor, how are you doing, sir? Thank you for coming. Okay, new equipment since we last. One of the focuses again was AEDs. You may have known a while back we got a grant for 6 AEDs. So there was at least one AED on every patrol squad. So if we had to go to a medical call, we had another life-saving device out there. This budget year, the commission approved for us to buy 6 additional AEDs. So now every patrol car that is responding out there, every single one has got a brand new AED. So that's just one life-saving issue. Tasers. How many of you guys have never seen a taser video on YouTube? I gotta tell you, these are some of the best weapon systems that has ever entered law enforcement. They come in 2 parts. The first part is the cartridge. This now without a cartridge is basically a stun gun. You have to have direct contact. So none of you guys are in any type of danger or anything like that. But basically it just works with metal contacts. You pull the trigger, it goes through a 5-second cycle. And this right here, you can see these doors are green. That is indicative of the fact that it's a 25-foot cable inside of this particular cartridge. So the officer doesn't have to be faster than the suspect. You just have to get within 25 feet. With that said, tasers are changing. The reality is, when you're running after somebody, these things are not very accurate, right? So you tend to miss a lot. Most of our patrol officers have a second cartridge, so they get 2 tries, but then after that, you're kind of out of luck. The newer versions, which we were forced basically to go to because these are becoming obsolete. The taser company is no longer going to support it through software and things like that. So we ended up making the transition this year, where the officer will now have 4 cartridges, but it's amazing. I'm going to end up bringing one to the next coffee with the chief. I hope you guys come. But it's an amazing piece of equipment, but that's also one of the things that we're upgrading is making sure that our folks out there have not the best of the best, but at least the modern day tools, so that way, again, if you have a problem, we have the equipment to take care of your problem. And Tito, you're a taser instructor, right?
Yes, sir.
So one of the infrastructure things that we are focused on for the past maybe 18 months is the fact that we want in-house instructors. To send Tito, let's say, or any one of our officers to a school, it can cost upwards of around $1,500 by the time you get registration or tuition, you get a hotel, you have to pay them per diem while they go, the fuel to drive there back and forth. It's a pretty hefty expense. So one of the things we focused on is making in-house instructors, so that way we can actually save dollars over the long run and actually train more often. But yeah, so Tito will be bringing us up to speed on our new tasers. All right, vehicle burglaries. How many of you guys have, yes. Yes, so vehicle burglaries, since we've met last, were a problem. In 1 month, we had 62. And for a small community like this, that will really jack up not only your overall crime rate, but the entire community was up in arms. And they're very elusive folks. I mean, we ultimately made 2 arrests, and last month I'm happy to say that we had 1 vehicle burglary. I hate the fact that we had any, certainly, but to go from 62 to 1, I think is pretty telling. The suspect that we arrested, we got information that 7 days a week, he would get up at 2 a.m. and he would go out and just check and make sure if your car door was unlocked, he was going to rummage through it and take what he could get. So please, 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 lock your car doors. That's the recurring theme, I think, in law enforcement in this country is every chief and every sheriff begs their community, please lock your doors. Don't become a victim. Most of these people that are out there burglarizing vehicles, they want it quick, they want it quiet. Some of them do break your window. That does happen, but it's extremely rare. Please lock your car doors. Just get into that habit. Remind your neighbors and your friends and your relatives. Lock your car doors, please. It will definitely prevent you from being evicted. Let's talk about homeless. Anybody in here see homeless folks in our community? Yeah, they're here. That's the reality. Every community in America has homeless folks. And there's not a city or a county or a department that's figured out a solution. So please don't have the expectation, that we're going to come up with the magic pill to end homelessness and close them. We are fortunate in comparison to some other communities. We have a very, very low number of homeless folks. I think our highest number we knew of was around 8, maybe 10 at some point. We had a few actual transients that come from the other coast on their way through, and stop off. But the reality is we had about 8 folks. Most of them had local ties here where families maybe didn't let them live with them, but they were giving them money or occasionally food or some other type of assistance, which really kept them here locally as opposed to moving on to a community that maybe had more resources. To try to explain the problem is, again, a little complex. It's not illegal to be homeless. So if you call a police officer, which is what we want you to do, the reality is we're not just going to show up and arrest that person and remove them from the area because it's not illegal to be here, right? They have as many rights as everyone else sitting in the room, whether you have a home or a job or whether you're homeless and unemployed. From a constitutional perspective, really none of that changes. So the police department, because it's not a crime, you would think, well, why call the police? And that's a great question. We have the ability to offer resources to these folks, and there are a lot of resources. Most of them are in Fort Myers, it's probably the biggest draw, West Palm Beach, but the reality is most of the folks that we have here don't want those help. There are rules associated with going to a homeless shelter, like you can't drink alcohol, you can't do drugs. If you have a mental illness, you have to take medication for it. So there's a lot of different rules that they don't want to follow, which is what causes them to remain homeless. We have offered those resources. We continue. We don't give up on them, I guess, if you will. We try to contact their family members to see if there is a way that they'll take them back, even if we have to transport them to a different community. If they have a different family member wherever, we'll make that trek. We'll try to help them out as much as we can. But if you do see some homeless folks doing something wrong, please immediately. And if you do see homeless, like I said, call us, we'll offer those resources. But if they decline, like I said, there's really no hard solution for that. Does anybody have any questions on that at all?
Yes. How do our city ordinances compare with the ordinances that you see in surrounding areas? As far as, not sleeping in parks, not, like the guidelines that they put around or the preventative measures that you see.
Sure.
Like in some communities you see on the benches, the partitions where it doesn't, it makes it nearly impossible. I mean, I guess you can to lie down. But, like what are we doing in that aspect? Because my concern is, as a female up in the morning trying to like exercise, and then you're coming across these people, and just like you said, we may be dealing with mental illness, we may be dealing with drug addiction. These are things that create erratic behaviors and possibly dangerous situations. Like I want to know that the areas as a taxpayer that I would like to utilize and help contribute to the maintenance and upkeep of are going to be safe areas for me and not, inadvertently walk into a potentially dangerous situation.
Sure. I mean, great question. What ordinances really do we have? There are a lot of cities out there that have what we refer to as anti-homeless laws, right? This city really doesn't. We have laws that are common sense ordinances, like you can't be in the parks after dark, right? So there is no camping or sleeping in parks. If you see anybody in the park, call us and we'll have them removed. Enforcement for being homeless gets a little tricky. There are a lot of lawsuits and case law out there that you can't. If we saw one of you folks who had a family member come and visit you, and you happen to walk through the park at night on your way to something else because you wanted to showcase our beautiful park to your family member, we're not going to come and give you a notice to appear in court for a criminal charge for being in the park at night. That's just not going to happen, right? We're really here. Those amenities, although there are rules, and we enforce those rules, the enforcement level is dependent upon circumstance, right? So we're not here to be heavy-handed enforcers of every little, we're not here to micromanage society per se. Those rules and those laws are meant to be enforced, but there's discretion in how much enforcement we give. And so because we wouldn't take a heavy-handed approach to you showcasing our beautiful park to your family member, we can't then have a completely different approach. Chronic or multiple enforcement or violations, I should say, certainly may cause us to ramp up enforcement on a particular individual or circumstance. That's for sure. And we do that now. The reality is we chase our known homeless folks from park to park at night. And then we'll find them sleeping up against a building and we move them along from there. And every couple of hours our patrol officers find them somewhere else and we get them up and we move them along from there. So because it's not illegal to be homeless, they have to be trespassing. And so it's, again, I understand the issue and I share your frustration, but the reality is, well, to get back to your original question, how do our laws compare to other cities? Other cities have more robust, what we call anti-homeless laws. They do. They get sued a lot as well. So they don't know, again, there's not any community out there that has figured it out. You can't go to a community in America that doesn't have homeless folks. I think the way we approach it is keeping our numbers low, as opposed to, I know some communities that have lots of services that they offer. Homeless shelters, medical, dental, there's a lot of resources out there. What we have seen from the Chiefs' perspective, when I go to these Chiefs conferences and I talk to Chiefs from all over the state, the reality is if we offered those robust services here, all of the people in Belgrade, the homeless folks in Belgrade and South Bay and anywhere else that doesn't have services is going to move here. That's the reality. Build it, they will come, is really how it works. So you got to be thoughtful in your approach. And again, like I said, no community has really kind of figured it out. So we're still, I don't know what word I'm looking for here. We're taking it day by day, and we're trying to help each individual basically get out of homelessness if they're willing to take that help. And that's really our approach so far. I hope that answered your question a little bit. Any other questions about homelessness in our community? All right, well, let's move on to adult arcades. That's a hot topic in the community, and so we might as well talk about it. I get a lot of questions from folks as to how the police department allows them to stay here when it's illegal gambling. And here's the issue. We have 4 of them in the city. If you're asking my opinion, yes, I think it's illegal gambling. I think anybody that doesn't see it that way, I'm pretty sure you probably maybe never been inside one. There's gambling machines loaded to the brim. And you can go in there with money, you can win, and you can walk out with more money. Sounds like gambling, it looks like gambling, and it probably is. With that said, gambling laws in the state of Florida are somewhat confusing. They used to be very black and white. If you had a game of skill, like skee ball or the crane game, something you'd see in Dave & Buster's or Chuck E. Cheese, those are all games of skill. So you can win tickets and get prizes. It's not considered gambling in the state of Florida because your skill level can affect the outcome of the game. Games of chance, like poker, slot machines, you have absolutely, as the player, no ability to affect the outcome. It's completely by chance. That, in the state of Florida, was considered gambling, and you had to have a gambling license, right, like the tribe, to actually have casinos and things like that if you were going to have games of chance. So,
Or be affiliated with a 501c3 for charitable purposes.
yeah, well, yeah, there are some exceptions, but having a gambling house, per
Yes.
se, or casino, you have to have a license. So with that said, there was a little law called the sweepstakes law. I don't know if you guys remember the McDonald's Monopoly game where you could buy a cup of soda, peel off the little tab, and you could win money, or a free hamburger, or something of value. So the reason that that was not illegal is because Florida enacted what they call the sweepstakes law. The sweepstakes law said that if it was incidental to a consumer product, right, that you could actually have a game of chance. So if the main point was to sell more hamburgers or cups of soda, you were allowed to then have a game of chance associated with that, as long as your main focus was the sale of a consumer product. And that's how McDonald's got away with it. Well, like every other law in the state of Florida, people are out there that want to exploit it and take advantage of it. If you remember these adult arcades, when they first came onto the market, they were offering gift cards as you couldn't get cash, right? You could only get gift cards. And the reason is because their sales pitch was, everything in here is incidental to a consumer product, as the law states. We're here trying to promote Home Depot. We're here trying to promote Publix or Walmart or whatever gift card they would give you. They're promoting consumer products. And that's how they really kind of got embedded into a lot of these communities, is through the loophole called the sweepstakes law. Now they're everywhere, and they're making so much money. They have teams of lawyers that are now claiming that these software-based games are not games of chance. They're, as the law defines it, right? So without a software expert, the state attorney's office is really troubled at trying to prove it in court that this is a slot machine, or that this is a Keno game, or some other game that's actually outlawed under the statutory definition. And so that becomes the problem. I can tell you that recently, about a week or 10 days ago, I had lunch with the state attorney's office. We do that regularly, but there are some steps that we may be able to pursue. No promises. Again, there's not a community in the state that has figured out how to get rid of the arcades. Every community wants to get rid of them, right? You have either the patrons that go there or people that hate them. Most of the time, there's really not an attitude that's in between. But we have some progress potentially.
To clarify, there are a couple of communities that have shut them down. Can you talk about what that looks like for those communities?
Yep. You may have seen in the news, Lee County Sheriff's Office shut some down. Those are all individual cases. So if Lee County had 200 arcades and they shut one down, it's not because they figured out how to do it. Otherwise, they would shut down, all 200. So they're all individual cases, dependent upon exactly what that particular owner was doing. Really no different than if they were selling drugs out of the casino, or if they actually had like a separate gambling operation that was more black and white than these software-based games.
And then on the East Coast, they had one community do away with them altogether, but that didn't go as planned.
We talked about legislating or creating ordinances to address homelessness, right? There are some cities out there that have created ordinances to try to push out the arcades. But in many cases, that led to lawsuits, and these cities lose, and they lose a lot of money. So you've got to approach everything intelligently, and maybe not have a knee-jerk reaction to something that we don't like or is perceived to be illegal. We want to make sure that we're working with all of our partners in law enforcement and the state attorney's office. Like I said, if the police department makes an arrest and the state attorney's office doesn't prosecute that case, it opens us up to civil liability. So if we know ahead of time that the state isn't going to prosecute a particular crime, it really would be unethical for us to go and make an arrest or shut somebody down knowing, ahead of time that that's not going to happen. So we do have some progress on the horizon. It's not a quick fix, but we are definitely working through it. So don't think that we're turning a blind eye to something like that. Any other questions on the arcades?
I'm going to dismiss myself at this time. We have to go hand out golden apples.
No problem. All right, so next thing we'll talk about is Neighborhood Watch. You may have seen on our social media that we are looking at starting a Neighborhood Watch program. And what exactly is that going to look like? There are completely different programs in many different communities. Some folks go out on patrol, some folks just have an internet or social media-based Neighborhood Watch. And the reality is we're still structuring our program. We want to make sure that anybody that's involved in it is safe We want to make sure, that we provide them lots of training. We're looking at it from a cost perspective, but we are going to have a kickoff meeting at the police department. It's going to be December the 19th at 6 o'clock p.m. If you are interested, or if you're just unsure if you're interested in being a part of Neighborhood Watch, please come to the meeting. We are going to offer a little bit of training. We'll probably have pizza, so you don't have to worry about dinner. Bring your spouse, your significant other, and just listen to what it's all going to be about. So it's December the 19th, and we'll advertise that a little bit more as we get closer. But we think it's going to be a very positive program.
What is the criteria for that, Chief, as far as age and things like that?
You're going to have to be at least 18 years of age. We certainly have an application and waiver. We want to make sure that the folks that we're bringing into our program are reputable. So we want to make sure that if you see somebody driving down the street and it says Neighborhood Watch on their car, or you happen to get a social media message from the police department that says Neighborhood Watch, we want you to be comfortable that the people that are communicating to you are reputable and trustworthy. So there is a one-page application. We just want to, again, make sure that you're a reputable member of our community, and we're going to give lots and lots and lots of training. Make sure that everybody's on the same page. So please come check it out. Does that answer your question? Mm-hmm. All right. So where do we go from here? One of the biggest things is that we're getting accredited. So what does that really mean? Ashley, I'll introduce her. If you guys don't know Ashley Smith, she is our accreditation manager. She actually came over with us in January to lead the process of accreditation. And what accreditation is let me explain it like this. How many of you folks here have ever been involved in the hiring process at the police department? Choosing who we bring on to get a badge and go to, or even Ashley or anybody sitting, none of you guys, right? You have no idea who we're hiring. So there's a little bit of blind trust that you have in the police administration as to who we hire, right? You probably don't think about it a whole lot, but how do we choose who's the best applicant? What about training? Do you guys know what training we give our police officers or our employees? Nope. There's just blind trust that we're giving them good quality training. We're giving them training at all. In every aspect. What about your money? The police department operates with millions of dollars when you talk about salary, overtime, buying vehicles, operating facilities. Are we spending your money wisely? There's really a lot of blind trust when you pay your taxes and just hope it's all going to work out. So what accreditation does is it allows folks from the outside, from the state, to come into our agency and they audit everything. They break our agency into 32 different areas called chapters, and inside those chapters there are thousands of standards that we have to follow. And they send a team of folks to our police department for 3 days, and they literally look at everything. Norma here is in charge of our evidence and property. And you can imagine it's a huge liability for the agency, right? I mean, she's got all kinds of drugs and money and guns and jewelry and all kinds of valuable, sensitive things. And if she doesn't do it properly, well, I mean, that's really troublesome when you get to court. So are we doing things
No pressure,
the right
Norma.
way? I mean, the reality is, are we? Do you guys know if we're doing things the right way? Or do you think you could be shocked by some news report revelation, that the Coolison Police Department is operating, like a bunch of yahoos? But the reality is, you really have a lot of blind trust in us, and we don't feel like that's a good way for you to spend your tax dollars. If you're going to give your tax dollars for a service, we want you to feel comfortable that we are operating under best practices and industry standards. This is what is going to give you that comfort, is knowing that there are outside people that are going to come into our agency and they really tear us up. They look at our policies, they look at our training, they look at our hiring practices, our promotional practices, our discipline practices, evidence, property, how we investigate crimes, how we respond to crimes, our infrastructure, as far as computer security. I could go on all day. There's thousands of standards out there that they're going to come in and audit us on. And they're going to do that on a regular basis. This is transparency at its best. You guys are going to be able to get through public records, if you like it, a copy of the report where they actually say what went good, what went bad, all that type of stuff. And it's an ongoing process. So that's what accreditation is. We have been at it now for probably 22 months, maybe 23 months. It has taken a long time to get up to speed, to make sure that we're buying the equipment we need to comply. We're buying the infrastructure, developing policies, making sure our folks are trained to a level where we're complying with those standards, and we're ready. The team of folks from the state is coming here to Post in December 12th, 13th, and 14th, and they'll be here. We'll put them up here, I think, at the Hampton Inn, and they'll be here all 3 days. They'll be doing ride-alongs with our officers, asking them questions, looking through our files, and basically going over everything with a fine-tooth comb. February is the conference where the full state commission will actually review their report and decide whether or not our agency is going to be accredited. Ashley's job depends on it. No, I'm kidding. but I'm going to tell you, she's been doing a phenomenal job. She really has. The agency believes in accreditation. We try to live, eat, and breathe those standards every day because it's easier when everybody understands and buys into the process. Ashley is, honestly, she's got her work cut out for her because she's one person. There are lots of agencies, like my wife is an accreditation manager for Sarasota, and they have a team of 5 people that do it. Ashley is doing it all by herself. So she's doing a great job. We're ready. The reality, we could have them come today. We're ready to go. But with that said, just know that your police department is not only getting accredited, but know what that means, that we are operating at the best standards that are known in the law enforcement community. All right, so that's where we're going from here. I do want to give a quick little shout out to a couple of upcoming events. This Saturday, November the 18th, starting at 11 o'clock, the police department along with the recreation department are hosting what we call Public Safety Day. It's listed on our website. Please share it. It is 100% free to the community. Like I said when we started, the philosophy is you should be able to know who your police officers are, your firefighters, your EMT workers, before you have a crisis. When you get there, you want to know that Mike, Bill, Tom has your best interest at heart because you've met them before. You know what kind of people they are. So that's really what it's about. It's about meeting the community. We're just trying to create a fun environment, to have that in. It's going to be very kid-friendly. We're going to have a police obstacle course set up. We're going to have a canine demonstration from the sheriff's office. You're going to be able to climb on all the vehicles, fire truck, ambulance, police car. They're going to have a SWAT vehicle there. Police explorers are going to be there with food. So there's definitely going to be a lunch event. If you know anybody with any type of sensory sensitivities, autism, or any other type of special need, we're going to open up 30 minutes early so they can actually get a chance in a quieter environment to climb on the vehicles, get some pictures with the family, things like that. So spread that word as well. 30 minutes, about 10:30. So if we get there a little early, that'd be great. Next event is our Shop with the Cop. That's going to be December 9th. And then a night with Santa. Every night or every year, you may have noticed Dan's growing out his beard. He does it every holiday season. Not that I'm saying he's Santa Claus, but
it's like I'm not going to pan over there and.
Yeah.
Santa Claus in the same room.
So we will
mystery
actually have Santa
continues.
and Mrs. Claus at the police department with a nice backdrop. You can bring your family completely free and get some pictures with Santa. We're also going to have toys. If you bring your kids or grandkids, every kid is going to get a toy that comes there. I do suggest getting in line kind of early. The line wraps around the block. But it is a great time, and it's a great way to get some good family pictures. That is going to be December the 16th at 6 p.m. And again, we're going to open up the doors 30 minutes early for anybody with special needs that may need a little bit extra help getting up the stairs or anything like that. So definitely come at 5:30 if you know anybody with special needs. And of course, I mentioned it already. The last one I'll mention is Neighborhood Watch, December 19th, 6 p.m. at the police department. If you're interested or even unsure if you're interested, you want to hear more about it, that'll be our kickoff meeting. And I think that's all I got. Other than, please grab a mug. I try to mention every time this is not some narcissistic way for me to get my face out there, but it's more so, I think it's symbolic that if you have a problem, you should be able to sit down and have a cup of coffee with the chief. Not today, any day. Just show up at the police department, and I have coffee in my office every day, and we'll sit down, we'll talk about your problem, we'll talk about your issue, we'll come up with some solutions together. The reality is I'm available. This is what you pay taxes for. So that's the philosophical symbolism over there. So please take them on, they're free. And what we also have over there is my business card. It's got my personal cell number on there. You can call me, text me. If it's 2 a.m., call Dan. And there's also some vehicle stickers over there. They are vehicle grade decals. There are police patch. I'm not going to tell you they're going to get you out of a ticket, but I will tell you that our police officers appreciate driving down the street and seeing it because it just shows that the community has support for them. So it's definitely a morale booster from a community-wide perspective. So if you don't have one on your car, please, I encourage you guys to take one, take two, while supplies last.
Tom, I have one more question.
Okay.
When you talked about tickets, did I see a social media post about the city of Clewiston working both ends of town?
We did.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So I will tell you again, philosophically, we give more warnings than we do tickets, right? The entire purpose of traffic control is not to pound the community for revenue. That's just not reality. Most of you guys would be shocked to hear that a regular speeding ticket, which right now would probably run you about $300-ish, that average, they get really expensive, but that's about average, $250, $300. The actual speeding ticket itself is around $40. And so where does all the rest of the money? They're at what we call add-ons. So Mothers Against Drunk Driving, Students Against Drunk Driving, some heart organization, some brain cancer research organization. What they do is all of these different organizations lobby the legislature to create what they call add-ons. So when you get a speeding ticket, you're actually giving money to all of these other different organizations. The base speeding ticket is actually fairly low. And then on top of it, we get an extremely low percentage of that base speeding ticket. The police department itself, our budget does not raise or lower depending upon the tickets that we write, right? So I don't get paid more, the department doesn't get more funding, it doesn't work like that. There's no incentive per se. So what is the incentive? Why do we write tickets? Traffic enforcement is for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to reduce traffic crashes. Because when you reduce traffic crashes, you reduce property damage and you reduce injuries. That is our focus. It is not to go out there and have this gotcha mentality. So you are more than likely going to get a warning as opposed to a ticket if we believe that we're going to gain your voluntary compliance in the future. That's all we want. We just want to know that in the future, you're not, we're going to have a behavior modification, if you will. With that said, the other day, we did have some traffic enforcement and we wrote a ton of tickets. It was with purpose that we did that. We're getting a lot of complaints about folks, construction vehicles, dump trucks, as well as regular motor vehicles that are speeding coming into town. We wanted to make a statement. It's just not going to happen anymore. Now, kind of talked about building the infrastructure where we focused on equipment and hiring folks and creating new instructors. And we were really spending all of our time and effort and energy on building the police department up to where we could get accredited. And now we're going to start transitioning that focus into traffic enforcement, making sure community events are going to be more so pushing ourselves out in the community and fixing the issues that maybe have been lingering for a while. But yeah, I think we wrote about 35 tickets. 30, yeah, which for a couple of hour time period is kind of telling that there's that many people coming into town that deserve a ticket, considering we get more warnings than we get tickets. So, but yeah, there's more to come.
Thank you.
Any general questions? Yes, ma'am.
I know about the leash law in town because I have a dog.
Yes, ma'am.
But what inside of Clewiston, what about fowl, chickens and hens and all?
So you can't have any chickens in the city limits of Clewiston.
None.
If you have a problem with the chickens, call the police department. We'll dispatch an animal control officer out there. We do have some local farmers that we partner with that are willing to take the chickens, and so we'll address that from that perspective, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Yep. And I gotta be honest, when I first got here, we couldn't catch a chicken to save our lives, but we're becoming quite the experts. we really are. It's amazing what skills you can learn on the fly. Yeah, for sure. Anybody else? I really appreciate you guys coming out. I really do. I love the opportunity to talk to you and find out, if there are problems, what you guys like, what you don't like. If you have a question and you didn't bring it up, please take my business card. My cell phone number's on there, and we will literally sit down and have a cup of coffee.
I've got one question. What would it take to, say you have a lot of turnover? What does it take, who decides what your officers get paid and?
Sure. So that's a budget. Every year we go through a painstaking budget process. It is. I feel really bad for the commissioners during that, and quite frankly, our city managers, very, very calm during the budget process, not like other city managers that I have worked with. But the reality is it's really set by the city commission. There's a lot of factors that go into that, like tax rate. I'm sure every one of our police officers would love, to make $50,000 more than what they're making today, and I'm sure every one of our taxpayers would like to pay $50,000 less. So it's a balance that we have to have. When we talk about attrition and turnover in the police department, in 2021 we had a 68% turnover rate. 68% of our staff left in 2021. This year we have a 15% turnover rate. So again, still it's a little high, but honestly not terrible. We're working on getting that down. We're really trying to create a better working environment, to keep folks. I think a lot of our folks are local here. They don't want to go anywhere. Of course, they gotta feed their family like everybody else. But the reality is, if you really want extra money, there's overtime dollars out there. There are details out there. Cops can make a little bit extra money. They can. Some of our civilian folks maybe don't have those opportunities, but as far as police officers go, they're making a good starting wage, and there is some opportunities to make some extra money.
Well, and I think if I remember it correctly, a lot of times we had the young, we had young officers coming in looking to get some experience, and then they want to go into more specialized areas, whether it's
Yes.
SWAT or a dive team and we just don't
Every officer
have those
you
things.
hire wants to rappel out of a helicopter into an armored personnel carrier with 5 M16s on them. That's the reality. These young kids, they want excitement. They're used to the movies, and to be honest with you, this is an exciting job. It really is. Even in quiet communities, I can't imagine ever stopping. I love it, and I can see why others love it. But the reality is, to attract new applicants, this is what they're looking for. We don't offer that here, right? We don't have a SWAT team, a dive team, a helicopter, and all of those other things that you might see in bigger cities. This is a great place to start your career, get some skills. If you want to move on, we are hoping that we're going to create a work environment to keep you. That you're going to love it here so much that you're not going to want to leave. We're going to help you develop what we call comfort zone, so you really never want to leave. And the other end of the spectrum, this is a great place for you to retire. If you're an older officer with a lot of maturity and experience and training under your belt already, we want you to come here too, because you're going to help, tamper down the younger kids that really want to go out there and, they want to rid the world of evil, one traffic stop at a time. But it's great. But you need those folks with energy. You really do. But you also need the maturity to really help guide them, to a nice, long, safe career. So I think right now we actually have a great mix. We got plenty of old guys, as you can see. Not you. But we do, and we also have a good handful of younger officers, and we really have a great crew. We really do. I'm very, very blessed in the fact that we don't have any what we call organizational terrorists. There's nobody causing problems. Everybody loves coming to work. I think we have a great crew. And we talked about attrition. The funny thing is, I go to these chiefs meetings, the conferences, and that's all they complain about is the inability to hire people. There's not as many folks coming into the profession. And I have chiefs from bigger agencies that say, oh yeah, I got 50 openings. Can't hire anybody. They're offering to pay your rent for a year. You would believe they're offering signing bonuses like you're a professional athlete. Whatever it takes to get you in, because money in their communities isn't the problem, right? It's it's actually getting people in the door. It's a very competitive environment. But that said, we're certainly not the highest paying agency around, and we have one opening. Yep, and so we're not really struggling with vacancies per se. So we attribute that honestly is to the fact that we try to make them happy every day. I want them to be miserable when it's time to go home at the end of the day. I want them to want to stay. And if we're not creating that type of environment, then we'll work at it until we do. That's really our philosophy. We don't want to dump money and energy and effort into an employee and have them walk out and take all those skills somewhere else. We want to keep those here. I hope that answers my question. Any other questions? All right, well, make sure you grab a mug, grab a sticker. Thank you guys very much for coming.
Grab some breakfast.
Thank you.